Good morning, everyone, and good afternoon. My name is Isabella Chmielewska, and I'm a program manager with Global Integrity. Today, we are having a fireside chat with our CTAP partners. CTAP stands for COVID-19 Transparency and Accountability Project, and it is an initiative that seeks to promote accountability and transparency through tracking of COVID-19 intervention funds across now 9 African countries: Cameroon, Ghana, Kenya, Liberia, Malawi, Nigeria, Zimbabwe, Senegal, and Sierra Leone. CTAP is sponsored by Conrad Hilton Foundation and the Skoll Foundation, executed together by Global Integrity, Budget IT Foundation, and Connected Development. And today we have 3 speakers from our implementing partners in Malawi, Ghana, and Kenya. So first, I will introduce Evelyn Matai, who is the lead in Kenya, and she's also from our implementing partner, CIDREC. Then Sharon Kalima is our implementing lead partner in Malawi, and she's also part of Follow the Money Malawi. And stepping in for Reina Kum this morning or this afternoon for most folks here is Jennifer Moffat, who is part of Budget IT Ghana and is one of the coordinators on the CTAP side for Ghana. So without further ado, thank you so much today for being here. The fireside chat is in a webinar format as well. So just housekeeping, just FYI for all the participants, even though you can't see each other, please feel free to say hello, to say where you're calling from on the chat. If you have a Q&A or rather a question that you'd like answered, please drop it in the Q&A box or raise your hand to ask it live when that time comes. And last but not least, please treat this as a very organic conversation. So I am not an active moderator per se, I'm just a host, but I will pose the first question to you. So make sure that you also ask your questions as they come up. But the theme today for the fireside chat is how the African CSOs, or civil society organizations, to be clear, are battling the vaccine fraud, religious challenges, and misinformation. And these are complex questions. So let's unpack that and ask a question for each subtopic, starting with the vaccine fraud. So starting with Evelyn, since you're first on my square, do you think at the current state, does the government at the national or subnational level have enough capacity to address vaccine fraud, or is it an issue of accountability?
Good afternoon, everyone from Kenya. Good to see you, Jennifer. Good to see you, Sharon, although it looks like Sharon has migrated to San Francisco, but good to see you all. In the context of Kenya, I feel like the government has the capacity to be able to deal with the vaccine fraud, although it has not been quite effective in doing that. We have a lot of state parastatals, which are independent, like the Economics Authority, and also the Directorate of Criminal Investigation, and also the Office of the Ombudsman. But we had a situation at the onset of COVID here in Kenya, whereby KEMSA, it's a famous KEMSA scandal, which is the Kenya Medical Supplies Agency, flaunted procurement procedures and awarded tenders to people that were not qualified to supply this medical equipment to both on national level and also to county governments. Until today, that was in 2020, 2021, currently, nothing has been done to the perpetrators. And the same KEMSA is still mandated to distribute the medical supplies. So you see, we have the systems in place, but they are not quite effective. So it calls for all CSOs to be all hands on deck. CSOs have been very active around holding the government to account in how it's spending its resources. And through the CTAP project, we've been able to form a coalition with other CSOs who are following or tracking COVID funds from different perspectives. For instance, Transparency International is looking at procurement. We were looking at disbursements and expenditures and so forth. So that kind of collaborative efforts to elicit collective action has proved to be that, although I think also the judicial system needs to also be proactive in terms of prosecuting and booking these perpetrators and ensuring that they restore the resources that were lost, or worst case scenario for people to be put in jail. So to answer your question, yes, we have the systems in place, but implementation is still a glaring challenge.
Thank you. Sharon, how is it in Malawi right now?
Thank you so much. So in Malawi, it's very interesting because the situation or the situation has been very different comparing to other countries. Because for Malawi, the vaccines are there; they're being procured. The procurement is not an issue, but it's actually the uptake of the vaccines. So when the vaccines came, there was a lot of myths and misinformation surrounding the COVID-19 vaccine, starting from religion reasons to cultural reasons to so many other reasons for people not to take the vaccine. So the issue for us is the vaccines are there, the procurement is there, but it is the government does not have the capacity to actually combat this misinformation and actually encourage its citizens to take up the vaccine. So what we have been doing is to actually collaborate with other different stakeholders, both at a community and national level, and also like other organizations, to make sure that we're creating the demand for COVID-19 vaccine. So we have actually been also collaborating with the government itself, because for us, we felt that it doesn't have the capacity to actually convince the citizens to take up the vaccine. So the collaboration has actually been good, working with religious leaders. Just to give you an example, last week we had an event in Chinji, which is a Malawian district, where we collaborated with different faith leaders from different denominations, ranging from Christians to Muslims, and then also collaborated with government stakeholders and the Ministry of Health to make sure that we're creating that much needed demand for people to take up the vaccine. It was really unfortunate because last year, actually, the government had to dispose 60,000 vaccines that were expired because the demand was just not there. So it's an effort that we still need to collaborate with other people as well, other stakeholders, to make sure that the demand is actually there. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. And you have moved us to the next question as well. So Jennifer, you're the last to answer this set of questions, and feel free also to ask each other questions as they come up. But originally, is the situation in Ghana similar or different to the situations that partners have described? Is it an issue of implementation? Is it an issue of take up? And then feel free to move to the next question, which is the religious challenges, and I'll repose that question in a minute. Thank you.
Thank you. Greetings from Ghana, greetings from Budget Ghana. And I think for Ghana, our issue is similar to Evelyn in Kenya. And the reason being that we have bodies that can look at the vaccine fraud issues. But they actually getting involved or going to the grassroots to find out whether the vaccines got to where it was supposed to be, who received it, and how was the distribution like. That is what hasn't happened. And for instance, we at Budget, we really look at the equity and then the distribution mechanism. And we realized that if the government has actually taken on the role to go do like what we did on our CTAP project, whereby we went to communities, we went to town hall, to organize town halls to engage them to find out what they need, if they really did get the vaccine, and what was the hesitancy rate within each region, because we realized that it differs from region to region. The kind of Even there are certain places we went to as CSOs, and we realized that they said they'd never received any vaccine. Whereas it is being reported that everywhere in the country they've dispatched vaccines to everywhere, but we realized they didn't receive it. And how they survived the COVID was through their own means. So I think partnership is really essential in this regard. And the government has the opportunity to do that. But if it comes down, if they think they can't really go to each community using their own systems, like the Ghana Health Service, like Ministry of Health, going down to gather those data themselves, they can actually partner with CSOs that can actually go like what we did and get those information for them. So I think for us at Budgets, after we did our town hall and then we came up with our report, we actually engaged Ministry of Health, our administration went to meet with some of the top leaders there, and they had this discussion with them about places that we went to and they didn't receive any vaccine. So who is supposed to be held responsible for this? Or how do we go about moving forward to ensure that such instances do not happen again? And it's still a dialogue going back and forth. And we hope that moving forward, we will have a maybe solid partnership with the government and then be able to take on some of these rules if they can't do it. Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you. And just coming back to the original question, have you faced issues of fraud? And if not, what other issues there are when it comes to religious or cultural challenges? What are the strongest roadblocks against COVID-19 vaccines and treatment right now that you have seen while you're doing the town halls and implementation work?
Okay, so for Ghana, it's each region has a very unique kind of issue in regards to the hesitancy, because you realize that at some places, it's more about cultural settings and their religious beliefs. And at other places, it's more political than actually cultural or any other thing else. And so, for instance, in one of our town hall meetings at Ada, that is at the latter part of Greater Accra, and over there, it was more political because the two major parties in Ghana, which is the NDC and MPP, were what was influencing people's decision whether they should take the vaccine or not. And one very key thing that was very prevalent everywhere was the fact that there was a lot of COVID reliefs that people thought they would receive. People actually queued to do some registrations and believing that they would get these reliefs. However, they didn't get it. Most people never received it. So for instance, at Adan, they were like, people were called, even though everybody registered, went through the process of registration to get it. It's just a select few that were called personally to come and get the relief, come and get the funding. And they felt like if you were calling people because they are your party members to come and get it, then I don't think I should also use my go, because in quotes, they believe that COVID wasn't really real and that the government was using this medium to get money from donors and use this as statistics and all that. So they believe that if you are going to use this as statistics, then it is better that you also give us the funding or the support, the COVID support that we're expecting to receive. So in Adan, they'll be like, I think on one of our radio shows, one caller called in and he was like, if only they will agree to take the vaccine if we are promised that the moment we take the vaccine, we go and get our funding, our grants, and we will go. Then in that way, we are willing to go and take the vaccine. But if not, I will not allow an MPP person or an MPP leader to take the money and I wouldn't receive anything, which was, you realize that was the view of a lot of people going forward, talking to them. That was their views on that particular topic. And that's why they are hesitating to take it. Another region, that is Somenya, they made mention that when the COVID, during lockdown, we had like 2 weeks lockdown in Accra, Greater Accra region. And they were like, during lockdown, we were told that the COVID was rampant and all that, then the restrictions started happening and all. And around that time when we believed that the COVID was really in the heat of the pandemic, the vaccine came and then they gave it to specific number of people or specific category of people. Then if you say their argument is if COVID is real and it is killing everybody, then they believe that everybody should have had access. But if it's coming in batches and you are selecting those that you really want to give it to, then right now that the COVID is not really in the heat of everything, they don't believe they should take the vaccine if the COVID has already passed. That's their argument. So over here, depending on where you are and the kind of arguments you get or the kind of hesitancy responses that you get.
Thank you, Jennifer. Let me route this question back to Sharon, going backwards. Do you see any particular roadblocks when it comes to cultural or religious challenges in Malawi? And you've already mentioned that you've worked with different faith leaders of various denominations, and would love to hear your observations there. Thanks.
Okay, well, in Malawi, there are actually three main reasons why there's the COVID-19 vaccine hesitancy. The first one being when the vaccine just came to Malawi, when it was made available, there were political issues, like politicians from the opposition were saying so many things about COVID-19, which was very naive. They were talking about how there is no COVID, or that the vaccine COVID is actually there to wipe away the Africans per se. So this kind of made the citizens be resistant to take up the COVID-19 vaccine. And then the other two reasons is actually the religious reasons, which I've already talked about, and also the cultural reasons. In Malawi, people in the communities have a very strong sense of, I guess, followership with the local leaders. So the local leaders were also following what the politicians had said, about COVID-19 vaccine meant to wipe out the Africans, and also that it's going to make you infertile and all those things. So it started from the politicians and then going down to the local leaders. And these local leaders were telling their community members not to take up the vaccine. And then also it extended to the churches as well, because the pastors would tell their congregations that, this is the end of the times, this is the mark of the beast. And it is there to, once you take up this vaccine, that means you're going to hell and all those things. So these three main reasons were the reasons why people were not willing to take up the vaccine, even when it was made available to everyone. And I've already talked about how we actually had to get 60,000 doses of vaccine. So working together with different religious leaders and also like the Ministry of Health and the government as well has really made a huge difference, because right now we have actually started creating the demand for COVID-19 vaccine. So we've also made sure that it's also available to the hard to reach areas. So one of the strategies that we've been using is actually maybe something as simple organizing football matches in communities. This is an event that brings together different people in the communities. So they're watching soccer, they're having fun. We're even bringing musicians as well. So, they're having fun. And then we, together with the Ministry of Health, we're also arranging for the healthcare workers to be on site, so that, they're passing on these positive messages about COVID-19 vaccine, and we actually have people taking the vaccine on site. So these strategies have really been helping a lot. Thank you.
Thanks, Sharon. Before moving to Eve, I have one question from Makwan Kundi from Malawi. She's saying that, and I'm sorry if I'm misgendering, they are saying that Malawi has a low internet coverage. So sometimes moving to almost the second question, misinformation can't be fully blamed on it, unlike other countries. And they would like to know if you could elaborate on this, and if there are any particular age groups that are prone to being affected by misinformation.
Definitely with the coming in of WhatsApp and I guess technology in general, especially like Facebook groups and also maybe like these forwarded WhatsApp messages. There has been a lot of misinformation, especially with the religious reasons, with the mark of the beast being the number one reason why people were hesitating. So we also have plans in place as CTAP Malawi to actually see how we can leverage on social media, which we've already started using. But the thing is, we have to we're coming up with a strategy to actually make sure that we're reaching these target groups. And the target groups, actually, the misinformation is mostly the younger generation, the youth, and also the older generation. I always laugh about how when the vaccine was made available, and I was talking to my mom, and she was like, "Yeah, no, I am not getting that vaccine because this person said this thing." Someone would expect my mom to be very civilized and not very naive to take up all this misinformation. So we also have strategy, we're also in the plans of developing strategies how we can actually leverage on social media, especially Facebook and these WhatsApp groups to make sure that we're combating this misinformation. But that is a very correct observation.
Yeah, absolutely. I can relate with my parents also not being very keen on taking vaccine, and they're from Poland, but they get information in the United States. So this is obviously a very deep problem that affects everyone globally. Thank you for sharing. Jennifer, you have your hand raised, and then Eve, I'm going to move to you. Thanks for your patience.
I just wanted to add to what Sharon was saying. And for me, my mom was like, she's not traveling anywhere. She doesn't have anywhere to go. So she doesn't think she needs the vaccine for anything. And it's really real that you talk to a lot of other people and they'll all tell you, I'm not traveling outside Ghana. I don't think I should get the vaccine. And those of them that religion plays a very dominant role in their life. And they have this misconception that taking the vaccine means either you are going to be infertile. We spoke to children and I heard someone saying, what do you know about the vaccine? And she was like, this vaccine, when you take it, when I grow up, I can't give birth again. And I'm like, what do you even know about giving birth? And you have this idea that when you take the vaccine, but it just goes to tell you the kind of discussions that parents are having at home. And this is what is actually also informing these kids, what they think the vaccine is and all that. So it's really everywhere.
Absolutely. I've heard that argument here as well, and it is concerning. Eve, can you please chime in on both topics, and especially with the misinformation concepts?
Okay, I'll start with religion because there are also other myths and there are also shortcomings from the government when it comes to transportation to the vaccine administering health facilities from the national depot. So the Catholic Church has been very vocal about its stance on issues such as family planning and also vaccination. So it didn't come as a shock when members of the Catholic Church were very hesitant to take up the vaccine. But people from the Catholic Doctors Association actually had to make a statement to sensitize its members on the importance of taking up the vaccine. So at least that was a proactive step from them in collaboration with the government to sensitize the public on that. Then when it comes to myths, there are very many. Some of them I can also relate to the other chapter leads. The issue of not being able to be reproductive in the future also came up. There's also the issue of job prioritization. People do not want to leave their workplaces and go to health facilities to get those vaccines. For instance, there's a county called Kisumu, which is in the Lake Region part of Kenya, whereby the predominant economic activity is fishing. So fishermen usually fish at night and sleep during the day. So they don't have time to go to these health facilities during the day. So the county government of Kisumu was actually proactive about this because they actually talked to the citizens. And what they decided to do is to send community health volunteers to the lake shores to administer the vaccine. So once they're coming on shore in the morning at 6 a.m., the CHVs are there waiting to administer the vaccines. So at least they were solution oriented, and that was able to be managed. There's also reluctancy to buy into communication from international community. I think people in grassroots communities are more keen to listen to local administration. So they want to hear from their village elders, from their chiefs, because these are people they interact with on a daily basis. So when WHO issues a statement trying to tell people to take up the vaccines, it's totally not relatable. Also in regards to that, there's the issue of language barrier. A significant number of Kenyans communicate with vernacular language. So when you're passing out these messages in English and Swahili, which is a national language, some people don't speak those languages, so it doesn't reach to them. And also an issue of inclusion, persons with disabilities. These messages in the onset of COVID were not being translated to Braille, for example. So the blind are left out of this communication. So those are some of the challenges that we were communicating to the county government to try and address. Other issues include lack of availability of the preferred COVID vaccine. In Kenya, for some reason, Johnson & Johnson was the popular one out of the 5 available vaccines in Kenya. So you can travel to a health facility, you leave your workplace, you get there, you find they're issuing out Moderna. So, I mean, I will not be keen to take up Moderna, yet I've had a lot of negative information through social media about that particular vaccine. So people shy away from taking up those vaccines. Also, when it comes to shortcomings with government distribution, we sought out through a research, the vaccine hesitancy and administration research that we conducted, CTAP Kenya, and I think Malawi and Ghana did the same. We realized, we looked at the distribution pathway from the depot, from the airport. The government issued a circular to say that vaccines should be cleared from the port in 48 hours, which was, I think, a very proactive thing to do. So they moved from those regional depots, from the country depots to the regional depots, which are 7 of them across the country. Now, where the problem comes in is once they reach the regional depots, that is through air and road, the problem is they have limited resources to transport these vaccines from the regional depots to the health administrating facilities. So you'll find some of them are transporting these vaccines on a motorbike. So you tend to ask yourself, how can you contain the vaccine on a border, and it needs like a cold chain to be able to ensure that once it reaches the recipient, that it's still going to be active. So those are some of the challenges that we're facing. And as far as the government actually released funds in an emergency way to ensure that counties are not suffering, because we usually have issues when it comes to the disbursement of resources from the national government to the county government. Sometimes resources even reach the county governments in the 3rd quarter of the financial year. What can you do? But they try to expedite this process and prioritize distribution of funds between the national government and the county government. But the cost of transporting the vaccines from the regional depots to the health facilities is a cost shared by the counties and development partners. Development partners have really come in handy because they're offering their vehicles. This county, like for example, the county of Turkana, they didn't have resources or cars to transport the vaccines. And you know, Turkana is a very vast county. It's very large, but has a very small population. So people in those areas are located in very remote places with very bad infrastructure. So development partners with their big cars really aided the counties to deliver those vaccines from that point to the recipient point. So that kind of collaboration, development partners have really come in handy. And when you tell me that vaccines are available, but transport costs is the issue, I mean, we really need to rethink financing when it comes to transportation for those counties.
Absolutely. Thank you. Sharon, you want to jump in?
Yes, I wanted to concur with Eve as well with the issues of transportation, especially to the remote areas. And yeah, other partners as well have been very resourceful and probably maybe offering their own resources to transport these resources, the vaccines. But one thing also that I just remembered was actually I had a chat during one of our town hall meetings. We were chatting with this woman, and she was just telling us how the reason why she went to the center to get vaccinated, but when she went there, she was told that she has to wait for other people because one dose has to be shared. The little thing has to be shared among, I think there were 3 or other people. So for her, it was like, okay, I gave an excuse from work that I need to go get vaccinated. Here I am, there's no one else. You're telling me that I need to wait because once you open that thing, then if it's not used, we have to dispose that are waiting should not really be waiting, like so we did have fruitful discussions with the government officials and even with the healthcare workers as well, because it might be valid that yes, this is a situation, but even with the way they were responding to the people that are willing to take the vaccine, it was not in a really friendly and welcoming manner. So they were also to knowledge to so many things. So I just want to say that when it comes to the
Sharon, we're losing you a tiny bit. Okay.
we
Sharon, we'll come back. We'll come back to you. Eve, do you want to jump in with any comments? or
Yeah,
questions?
I'm sure all of you have heard about WikiLeaks, which was basically trying to expose some corruption issues. There's an organization here in Kenya that has come up with something like that. It's called WikiLeaks. Wizi in Swahili is theft. So we've had about 47. We've had about with some interference.
Yeah, keep going. Sorry.
Yes. So that organization, the WikiLeaks initiative, they stated that we've had about 47 scandals since independence. So there's already mistrust in government because of all the corruption scandals and all the money that we have lost. Public funds are usually used to enrich individuals. So when COVID came, people totally did not believe that there was anything like COVID. They just thought that it was another grand plan to fleece the country's coffers. So it's been quite a challenge to convince people that COVID actually exists. And those who really believe that it's there have either gotten it themselves, contracted it themselves, or have family members or neighbors who have contracted it. So we've also had to embark on a lot of sensitization to just spread the word that COVID actually exists and encourage government also to intensify their messaging so that everybody can be aware of it, and also the importance of controlling the spread so that we can get back to normalcy, basically. So mistrust in government, I think, is one of the key challenges that we have faced here in Kenya.
Thank you. Sharon, do you want to come back with the last remarks that you had, since we lost you a little bit there?
Thank you. I had actually finished. Finished, but yeah, I guess all I can say is as Malawi, as CTAP Malawi, we're still, even though we have worked on different strategies, working with local leaders, religious leaders, even with the government, we're still trying to explore other ways because we don't want to leave any stone unturned. So what we have found is actually being creative is the key. For example, I talked about collaborating with musicians and then arranging maybe soccer matches and all that. So we're still trying to find other strategies to make sure that the demand is really high, you know, where the figures are going up, but we still want to, you know, we need to reach that level where we know that, yeah, right now, all that misinformation is gone. And then, yeah, one of the participants also talked about social media. So I think we also need to leverage together, like all the CTAP countries as well. In the world of technology, in the modern world of technology, we really, really need to make sure that we're utilizing technology. And I was reading something yesterday which was really surprising. Apparently, Generation Z, they use TikTok as a search engine and not Google, which I think is very interesting. I was like, huh, maybe we could actually use these other platforms to make sure that
Absolutely. Sharon, we were losing you a little bit there, so I will try to highlight two things that you said that were really awesome, and then we'll route back to the other speakers. And I have one question, actually two questions in the chat that I will pose to you. But you said TikTok and soccer matches could be newer ways of reaching young people that are much more engaging and new. So any reactions to that from the two other speakers, Eve or Jennifer?
Isabella, I lost you over there. What was the question?
Oh, apologies for that. I was routing back with Sharon's comments on using new ways of reaching people that are working for young people, such as TikTok or other community engaging forms that also build communities up and already exist within like soccer matches and other ways. Yeah, and the original question was, what are some of the most persistent and damaging forms of misinformation and that have emerged and stayed with us? And then what are some of the innovative remedies that that you have to combat them? So before I move to the two questions that are open, and for anyone in the audience, please feel free to raise your hand or drop them in the Q&A. Our chat function is not enabled, but the Q&A is working, so please do that, and then I'll be on the lookout for your hand raised. But yeah, go ahead. Any other innovative ways that you have found to reach people, whether young or old, or otherwise maybe out of the loop from information about medicine and access to it, and the transportation issues that you have mentioned?
Okay, maybe if I can start. sometimes it's not very smart to duplicate efforts. In part of our coalition, we have other CSOs that are very heavy on misinformation. For instance, an organization called Code for Africa. So they have this platform called Fact Check. We actually at CDREC, we have a community radio station called 99.9 Gateway FM. And community radio stations here in Kenya essentially target informal settlements and rural areas. So it is the best tool to use when it comes to trying to reach the marginalized communities. So with the Fact Check platform, the journalists and CDREC were able to train about 54 journalists, both on the budget making process, to empower the citizenry to be able to read and understand budgets. Because if you don't understand how this money is being expended, and you can't make the relation between the plans and the subsequent budgetary allocation, I mean, there's no quality advocacy that you can do, because we have to leverage on evidence-based advocacy. So one of the ways we've been doing it is through community media station and journalists, and also predominantly through social media. That is simplifying this content, because budget information can be very heavy. So simplifying this information, and yeah, I see Jennifer laughing. This information can be simplified and created in shareable formats that can be shared through WhatsApp, small videos on TikTok, Instagram, and one of the spaces that we use a lot is Twitter, because Twitter, actually, Kenyans drove our ex-president out of Twitter because people kept on asking him to be accountable about this situation and that situation, to a point of, because of our freedom of expression in Kenya, people were taking it a bit too far. So my point is, Twitter has been a very powerful platform to kind of drive the agenda of health accountability here in Kenya. I like the idea of soccer that Sharon has brought up. We are willing to explore such innovative ways to pass the information without really giving the information, the public too much information that is not palatable to them. And also trying to make the relation of why accountability in the healthcare sector, how it influences an individual. Because there was one time I'll just give a small example. I was participating in a rally or a demonstration in Nairobi here in town. And a lady asked me, what are you protesting about? So I was like, oh, you know, the government is corrupt. They're using our taxes badly and all that. But she's like, what are you talking about stealing? All my money is still in the bank. No one has stolen from me. So you see, the public does not understand or make relation that even when you go to the shop and buy a loaf of bread, you've contributed to the revenue collection of the county. So the government is actually accountable, should be held accountable in explaining how these resources have been expended for the benefit of the greater good.
Jennifer, I saw you nodding. Would you like to chime in on Budget IT's approach to simplifying complex information?
I think if I've exhausted everything I would have said, and this gets us to the point for us to understand that most of the issues across Africa are very similar. And so it's there to say that approaches to resolving them can also be very, very similar. So for us at Budget, and I think some of the things we are noted for is how we use infographics to send messages across to people, and the fact that we simplify our national budgets, like Eve was saying, and then go into communities. For us, it doesn't just end that we just share on social media, but it is part of our engagement. We go to communities, we go to schools, we go to marketplaces.
Jennifer?
Student, one girl was like, I don't listen to the budget. I don't think it has anything to do with me. any question you asked about it, she's like, it was so alien to her. And this is a university student where you are expecting to be like out there advocating for this and that. So until our programs officer explained to her how it affects her, what kind of provisions within it that can even affect her life in school. She was like, okay. And I'm like, yes, this is the reason why we exist. When over 152 pages document is read in Parliament, you don't expect the normal person or the regular person on the streets to understand that. And the kind of jargons and things that are used there are not something that a regular person will understand. So what we do is, it doesn't even matter whether it is the national budget that we want to simplify, even our research work, anything that we do, we put it in the form of infographics that will help. If I go out there and I'm engaging you, you should be able to understand what I'm actually talking about. So even if we are promoting it on social media, we did a very, I think, 5 core infographics that we promoted through sponsored ads on Facebook, Instagram, and even Twitter. And then the comments that started coming in, someone will be like, even because of what you are even saying on your ad, that's the reason why I am so strong that I won't take the vaccine. And it's really interesting when you realize that people actually have a staunch position and nothing you say actually moves them. And it's quite interesting. But one of the key things that has been very, very helpful for us on our engagement, especially with the CTAP, and looking at accountability in the health sector, and then the vaccine equity and distribution, has been our town hall meetings. Our community engagement has been very, very key. I think most of our information, if we even go on radio shows to talk, it has been because of the kind of engagement we had in the communities, which has helped a lot. And we even created, as part of moving forward, we created a WhatsApp platform for the towns that we met or the places that we've been to. We got consent from them. And then we created an integrated platform whereby those that we engaged in the small town hall meetings, we put all of them on that platform. And then we have engagement, because we realized that at certain places there were supposed to be follow-ups. Some of them were supposed to get back, because for our town halls, normally we make sure we have a government representative in the town. So maybe the assembly member or a district committee member or any of those people over there. If it's possible to have the sub-chief or the queen or something over there, any opinion leader, any CSO should be there. So we realized that for some of them that it's got to do with having data from the district assembly in regards to distribution, they were like, oh, they want to go back and then find out. Some of them, even the people from the district assemblies or the unit committee were like, some of the things that we are even talking about, they even did themselves. They've asked those questions in their meetings and they are awaiting feedback. So since they also do not have those data, they would want to be given the opportunity that when they get that information, then they'll be able to share to their members or the people in their community. And it has been, for us, the town halls have been really, really helpful, interacting with people, knowing the reality, what is really real, as against what we are being told online or what the government is saying. And moving forward, I think apart from budget, what we are also doing in regards to vaccine and then the hesitancy, another organization, Good Life Ghana, they are also very keen on using a lot of influencers to send the message across why people should really go and get their jab, you know. So that has also been there. So I think for us, dance is very, very key here. And I'm currently almost the trend is everything, when you put it in a dance format, it's easy for people to relate to and then use it. So taking from Sharon, I think going to sit back, I think I will discuss with our team if we can also try and have one engagement that is involved with dancing and using that to promote stuff on social media. So Sharon, you've been very, very helpful. Thanks for the knowledge. And of course, using our bloggers, we have a lot of youth bloggers, we have a lot of YouTubers who are also doing amazing things in the COVID space. So I think collaboration with those people also will play a very key role in getting the message out there. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your thorough remarks. I have spotlighted you all right now because I want to get the chance for you to ask each other questions, and I'm really happy to hear that there has been a collaboration there. I want to bring up two from the chat and then one last one. Try to combine them all, so feel free to address whatever parts you can, since we only have 5 minutes left. So last chance to enter more questions in the Q&A box, please. From Sina, and you already answered some of this, but how do you enable access for vulnerable people to the COVID vaccinations? From Themba, there's a question about ongoing work to counter mis or disinformation, including among other collaborators, and where can access these. I think you've mentioned some platforms, but if there's anything else, please do. And last but not least, from my colleague and ED of Global Integrity, Alan Hudson, he asked many questions, but I will try to condense them into just a few. He is asking, which organizations in Ghana, Kenya, and Malawi do you feel that CTAP's work has been able to inform and influence, and what changes have you seen? And what is it about CTAP that has really enabled you to be effective, both as a multi-country initiative and in your own work in individual countries? And I can start with Sharon, and then Evelyn, Jennifer, and we'll wrap it up. Thank you. Sharon, go ahead. Oh, we can't hear you. We'll come back to you, Sharon. I'm so sorry. Evelyn, would you like to jump in on those questions, please? And any comments or questions that you have for your fellow panelists here?
Malawi internet has been put on display following that comment from the participants. Now we really believe that there's an issue. So I'll start with the access to vulnerable persons.
Actually highlighted that in the beginning. Was okay. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, Sharon, we can't hear you clearly, so we'll come back to you, okay? Sorry about that.
Okay, yes, so I'll speak first about how we partnered with government to ensure that there's access for vulnerable persons. And in regards to this issue, I think the government has done a stellar job when it comes to ensuring that the special interest groups, as they are called in our constitution, the persons with disability have full access to the vaccines. That is by working collaboratively with the community health volunteers to identify persons with disabilities in their areas, and then in turn, those vaccines are actually sent to their doorstep. They administered at their doorstep, so they don't have to hassle to travel long distances to go and receive those vaccines. Then I'll also talk about the question in regards to how CTAP has influenced. Through our advocacy on vaccine and healthcare accountability and formulation of the coalitions, we were able to secure a space in the development of the National Action Plan 4 that is coming up. So there's a steering committee for civil society organizations, which is very strong, and they've been holding the government to account to ensure that open governance is being implemented in counties. However, in Kenya, there are only 4 counties out of 47. That's a very small number, insignificant number of counties that have actually assented to OGP. So according to the plans, after review, we realized there was no component for healthcare. So in our capacity, we are going to be steering the OGP conversation when it comes to healthcare accountability. It's an entirely new component which has come out from this advocacy through CTAP. And I think he mentioned something about which organization is doing well when it comes to COVID-19. Of course, I will say CDAREC. I mean, we've had coalition building with other CSOs, and what the frustrating thing about it is that COVID is considered to be over right now. So most partners to our coalition members have diverted to other issues. So they don't have resources to continue the COVID-19 advocacy. So we've been left alone, essentially. All the other organizations are doing other things. They're not really prioritizing tracking COVID funds. So I can say under this CTAP project, we will continue with these efforts continuously, until the project's conclusion. So there's that issue of financing, raising resources to continue this, considering that COVID is totally over. Then there's something I wanted to raise that I came across this morning. When we were coming into the CTAP advocacy, we thought that we were going to deal with the fraud within our country. We never thought about people stealing money from other countries and coming to invest them here in Kenya. That is an actual case that has happened. There are some Kenyans who are in Minnesota who stole from the US government. They have been arrested and they came to buy luxurious houses and properties here in Kenya. So that's one aspect of tracking the funds that we had not foreseen, but it seems like people are using COVID funds. They're laundering that money and using it to their own personal benefits.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. I'm gonna have to.
The questions are mainly.
Yeah, so we will have more events. Actually, there's one more coming up in October and another one in November. I wanted to give a chance to Jennifer and Sharon to jump in with any final thoughts that might address those issues. Sorry, Evelyn, and thank you. Jennifer, Sharon.
Evelyn always says everything.
All right, are you able to hear me? Okay, are you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I just wanted to say that we have also been very intentional with the type of partnerships that we're making and the type of people that we're collaborating with, especially looking at the angle of vulnerable and marginalized group of people. So one of our strategies and one of our key things that we do is actually collaborate and work with people with disabilities, and they're part of the coalitions as well. We've got like 3 organizations that are working with people with disabilities, just to make sure that we're also advocating for their, for their access to good health and, healthcare services, but that they're also able to advocate for themselves. And also we have been working with the Malawi Human Rights Commission and Malawi Human Rights Defenders, because these are some of the organizations that are doing really well when it comes to following up on issues to do with transfer.
Okay, thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Sharon. We're losing you again, but we will share the key outputs from this event in the blog as well. So stay tuned for that. Jennifer. Sorry. Jennifer, would you like to jump in? And it's just residual.
So working together with these different coalition members has really helped us to achieve our goals. And the last thing that I wanted to say also.
Okay, to sum up.
Yeah, to sum up, sorry.
To sum up, I would say that Budget Ghana had been very, very intentional about our community engagement. For us, what was very crucial is being the bridge, the people and the government. and we have been very key. It's even our advocacy strategy, whereby we focus on both the community members and whatever we are able to get, the feedbacks that we get, we now do follow-ups with government agencies involved to find out exactly what went on, or if there's anything that is going wrong, how do we address it? So we've engaged Noguchi Memorial Research, and they were more in charge of the COVID issues and the vaccine and then getting the tests, and also even Ministry of Health, whereby we've engaged some of their directors on what is the way forward. When we say accountability, what does it mean? Who do we actually hold accountable for the various mislaps that we are seeing, the various lapses here and there? How do we address it? Who do we talk to? How do we go about it? And our partnership has been very effective. And for us, we believe in giving the power or the focus to the people for them to go out there and ask the right questions. So I would say if you are judging which of the COVID implementing bodies in Ghana that has really done so well, I'll always say, of course, it's Budget Ghana. And we ask people to get involved, ask the right questions, and also get involved in their daily activities. So from this, we say thank you from Ghana. We are sending all our regards to Kenya, Malawi, to Global Integrity, and thank you for actually hosting this. It has been very helpful knowing that whatever I'm facing or we are facing here in Ghana cut across other African countries.
Thank you. That is a beautiful way to end our fireside chat. Thank you, everyone. Sorry for going over time, and thanks for sticking with us this morning and this afternoon. And we'll be in touch with more soon.
Thank you so much, Isabella, and an all-women panel. First of its kind.
Oh, good. I think there were connectivity issues on all ends, including mine, and it just happened. So thanks for bearing with us. And Iyanu says, well done, guys. And Sanjita says, hello from Accountability Lab in Liberia. So on that note, we'll continue the conversation next time. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay,
So much,
thank you.
Isabel.